When Devin Patrick Kelly opened fire inside First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, a man who lived near the church grabbed his own gun and ran out of the house barefoot to confront the killer. As Kelly sped away in a Ford Explorer, the good guy with a gun knew he still had a part to play. He spotted Johnny Langendorf and his truck across the street and hailed him down. Langendorf didn't hesitate, and together they chased down the killer. Now, we are honored to have that hero, that good guy with a gun, on the show today. His name is Stephen Willeford, and I'm going to let him tell the rest of the story. Stephen, it's our pleasure to have you here on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. Do you just want me to go straight into the story?
I think, you've probably told this story 1,000 times, but for our audience who may have either not heard about it or haven't heard it in a long time, it was a while ago. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I think helping people understand how the process, how it unfolded, would be really helpful.
So in 2017, I was home. Normally, I would have been at church, and I would have been like 40 miles away at a church that I attended. But I was going to start an on-call at the hospital where I worked. So I chose to stay home and relax. And my daughter made me aware of gunfire. And I ran to my safe. I grabbed an AR-15, a magazine, and popped open a box of ammo and shoving ammo in my magazine as I ran for the door. My daughter burst in the door and said, "Dad, there's a guy in black tactical gear shooting up the church." I asked her, I said, "Did you call 911? She said, "I did. They're aware of it." So right away, I was more afraid of the police than I was the shooter himself, because they were coming to a mass shooting and I was running across the street with an AR-15 in my hands and no shoes on. I didn't take time to put my shoes on. I asked my daughter to load me another magazine because I only had a handful of ammo, and that was sending her back in the house to do busy work to occupy her. I did not want her following me out because he already had enough targets, and I didn't want him to have her as a target. I didn't want her to be a distraction, and I certainly didn't want her to run to my side if I had failed.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second, Stephen? That you just brought up something that's important. You seem to be, in that moment, not as reactive as most people might think you would be, but more rational, that you are able to tell your daughter, give her, like you said, busy work, because I'm shocked, because most people, I think, would be somewhat reactive in a situation like that, but it seemed like you kept your cool. How were you able to do that?
I truly believe, I'm a Christian, and I truly believe that God was instructing me and covering me, and I was thinking more clearly than I had ever thought before in my life.
Wow.
And I can't explain everything. I did call my wife as I was loading the magazine and getting the gun out, and I asked her where she was. She said she was at my younger daughter's house taping and floating walls. We were trying to complete a house for my younger daughter at the time. I said, "Stay where you're at." She said, "What's going on?" I said, "There's someone shooting up the church." She said, "Don't go over there," and I hung up on her. And again, I dropped the phone, ran for the door. The daughter that had made me aware of it, she had run out and got in her car and drove up the block to find out what was going on. And she saw him shooting through the doors and moving into the church. He turned to her, and she did a U-turn and ran away as fast as she could. And again, when I ran out the door, she followed me outside the door. And I thought she was going to follow me over there. And again, I didn't want her to, so yes, I sent her back in the house. And as I ran across the street, I yelled out. People say that wasn't too smart, and it really wasn't. It kind of gave away my my element of surprise, if you will. And inside the church, he had just shot Julie Workman through the breast, and he shot Chris Workman in the back. They were both hiding under the pews, and it instantly paralyzed Chris from the waist down. And then he walked over and he was pointing the pistol directly at Chris. And Chris thought he was going to die. And Chris heard me yell. And he said the expression on the shooter's face changed. He dropped his rifle in the church and came out of the church shooting at me with a pistol. I real quickly ran for a Dodge pickup truck parked in the yard across from the church. And I came up over the hood. He hit the truck in front of me, shattered the windshield of the car behind me, and he hit the house behind me. He had on Class 3 body armor and a ballistic bulletproof helmet.
Can I stop you for 1 second again, Stephen? I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt you, but I want to get these points in, because you said he dropped his rifle but came out with his pistol. Why did he do that?
Again, I truly believe that God called the demon out of that church. And it wouldn't have taken him but 2 seconds to finish off Chris and Julie. But when I yelled out, he complied immediately. And I truly believe that when God calls a demon out, it has to comply immediately. And that's the only explanation that I have. Is I truly believe that there was a spiritual warfare that was going on that no man's eyes could see.
So that's amazing. This is amazing so far. So anyway, so you get to the pickup truck.
And he, like I say, he hit the truck in front of me, shattered the windshield of the car behind me, hit the house behind me. I came up over the hood of the truck. I hit him in the left chest and I hit him in the abdomen. Both of those stopped by the body armor. He ran for his vehicle, which was parked in the middle of the street with the driver's side door open and the engine running. And as he turned to the side, I was able to put a round high in his side and one high in his legs. And he got in the vehicle and he put 2 shots through the side window. And I saw those holes open up and the glass falling, all in slow motion. I put one where I perceived his head to be, because I couldn't really see his head because of the reflection of the sun in the glass. And law enforcement said that broke across his forehead right underneath the brim of the helmet. He accelerated, turned the corner, and was fleeing as fast as he could. By the time I got in the middle of the street, he was about 150 yards away and fleeing. I put one final shot through the back windshield that shattered the back windshield, and law enforcement said that went through the driver's side seat and hit him right at the left shoulder blade. And he topped the hill and out of sight. And I'm standing in the middle of the street saying, he can't get away. This can't end this way. And I looked off to the left, and there was a pickup truck. It stopped at the stop sign. And I'd never met the man before in my life. And I ran over and I tapped on the window and said, that guy just shot up the Baptist church and we have to stop him. He was on the phone with, at the time, dispatch. 911 here goes straight to dispatch. So he was talking to dispatch. He unlocked the truck and I climbed up in the cab of the truck with him. And we gave chase, and we chased him 11.6 miles. And in the end, he killed himself. He tucked the pistol up underneath his helmet and pulled the trigger and killed himself. I'm okay with that. I truly believe he was coughing up his own blood. But the fact he chose to take his own life is okay with me.
Wow. So that's amazing. So 11 and a half miles, you chased him. I might think of things that maybe you've never been asked before, but these are things that come to my mind as I'm trying to play out this scenario. What were you and him talking about for 11 and a half miles?
Well, he was on the phone with dispatch.
Okay.
He was very occupied driving. He said over 95. I'm going to say he was doing over 100. So he was driving with one hand, and with the other, he was holding the phone to the side of his head and speaking to dispatch. I dropped the magazine at some point and looked in the magazine because I didn't know how many rounds I'd put in the magazine. I didn't know how many rounds I had fired, but I dropped the magazine. I looked, I had one round on top of the magazine, one in the chamber. And I told Johnny, I said, tell them, hurry, hurry. I have 2 rounds left, and he still has on body armor. So that's some of the conversation that happened. And then at some point I told Johnny, if you catch him, you're going to have to put him off the road. And Johnny was in a 3/4 ton Dodge pickup truck. And the murderer was in a Ford Explorer or Ford Escape. And so Johnny could have very well put him off the road. And Johnny just looked at me real calmly and said, yeah, I already figured that. So Johnny was probably already thinking, I get to try a pit maneuver,
Oh, right. So you guys were pretty much on the same page and didn't have to say a heck of a lot to each other, it sounds like.
No, he was for the most part, his part was telling dispatch what roads we were crossing, what road we were on. We were on County Road 307. And each time we crossed a crossroads, he would say, this is where we are, letting dispatch know where the chase is being taken place. Again, police are on the way to the church, but we definitely wanted some officers to come to the chase. And in the end, he pulled over off to the right side of the road into the ditch, and Johnny pulled out with his front bumper, even with the guy's rear bumper, still on the road. And I reached over with my left hand and opened the door, and I stuck the rifle out the window. And at some point I had let the window down. I stuck the rifle out the window. I was going to step out and use the door as a shield and re-engage him. But before my foot hit the ground, he accelerated. He hit a sign in front of him, back on the road, and Johnny was after him right away. I barely got my foot back in the vehicle, and we chased him about 3/4 of a mile more up the road. This time he swerved off to the left and through a fence and about 50 yards out in the field. And I told Johnny, I said, get down below the dash. And I got out this time and put the rifle over the hood of another truck and had it aimed at the driver's side window. And he was faced away from me, so I couldn't really see in the vehicle or anything. And I started yelling, get out of the truck, get out of the vehicle. And I waited another 5 to 7 minutes before police arrived. And I heard nothing or saw anything from the vehicle at the crash scene. The next thing I heard were the police officer that came first on the scene on a PA system. He said, driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up. And I turned and looked up off to the left, and I could see the officer there, and he keyed the mic and said it again, driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up. At this point, I didn't know how much the officer knew.
Right.
So I laid the rifle on the hood of Johnny's truck, and I started coming back to the back side of the truck with my palms out, hands up, wanting the officer to know, I'm not the bad guy.
Yeah.
And he's standing there with a mic in his left hand and a pistol in his right hand. He's standing behind his door. And we make eye contact, and he keyed the mic again, and he looked at me. He said, not you.
So he knew. So he knew.
He knew, but I didn't know that he knew.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I would imagine you'd be afraid of getting shot by the cops. I can't imagine that.
That was my biggest concern. I did not want to be shot by the police. But look, anyone in this kind of situation, you need to understand that law enforcement's coming hard and fast. They don't necessarily have all the facts.
Right.
And they want to go home to their family at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you need to be aware that they may not know who you are. So you need to do everything you can to be compliant, be seen as compliant, and absolutely, go above and beyond to make sure that they don't shoot you. But they had put Johnny through to dispatch, and apparently they knew already who I was. And so I went back over and I picked up the rifle again and held it over the hood of the truck. Again, I'm about 50 yards from the shooter. I got an AR-15. He's 100 yards away and he's got a pistol. So I, even having 2 rounds, had a tactical advantage over him. And we waited till another 5 or 6 more squad cars came. This time they were going to their trunks and they were pulling out AR-15s of their own. And I'm like, I'm done. I pulled the rifle off. I put it on the toolbox of Johnny's truck. And now I'm trying to get my feet in the shade of Johnny's truck. November 5th, 2017 in Sutherland Springs, Texas, it was 90 degrees for a high. And I was barefoot and my feet started to feel it. The adrenaline was gone at that moment and my feet are getting hot.
Oh, man.
So I stayed there another 30, 45 minutes trying to keep my feet in the shade. And I decided that I was going to run back to the police line. And when I started to run, they said, no, we'll bring up a police cruiser and bring you back to the police line. You can use it for cover. So they brought up a police cruiser, and then as I kind of squatted down and ran back to the police line with the police car beside me, then they put me on a hand guardrail there on the side of the road. And I was wondering why they didn't approach the vehicle. I later found out that they had sent another officer home to get he had gotten a drone for his birthday. And so they sent him home to get his drone so he could fly over there and see what was going on in the vehicle. Oh. And that's when they determined that the shooter had taken his own life. And they held me down there at the crash scene for about 4.5 hours.
Well, let me say this. I mean, if it wasn't for the idea that Texas is so gun friendly, Second Amendment friendly, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did. And I wanted to mention one of our sponsors before we go any further with you. And I know you and I both are very involved with Gun Owners of America. They are the No Compromise Gun Rights Group, and I urge everyone to become a member at gunowners.org. What have they done? Well, GOA has secured a preliminary injunction against the ATF pistol brace rule. GOA members have submitted a record 85,000 plus comments opposing the ATF's universal registration check rule. They helped enact permitless carry in Nebraska and Florida. GOA secured victories in California, Illinois, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Plus, they won 2 legal victories against the ATF zero tolerance policy, and GOA fought to overturn Joe Biden's ban on funding hunter education, shooting sports, and archery in schools. So with the constant attack on our Second Amendment, we often ask ourselves, what can I do? This is what you can do. You can become a member of gunowners.org and help us save the Second Amendment. So thank God, Stephen, that you were able to do what you did. It's an amazing story. I would imagine after all that, so at that point, they declared him dead in his car, correct?
Yes. They still had not approached the car when I left 4.5 hours later. I guess
four and a
they
half
were.
hours. Wow. Okay.
So I didn't know whether they were waiting because they were worried about the vehicle being booby trapped or what. I don't know. But when they finally gave me my leave to go, and thank God I lived in Texas. Texas is a very gun-friendly state, 2A friendly state. If I'd been California or New York or one of the other states, I may not have been able to just walk away.
Yeah.
But when I finally was able to walk away, they were still there at the crash scene. I didn't know whether they were waiting to see if he bled to death or what. I really don't care. But at some point, like I say, they flew the drone over and said that he had committed suicide. But they had not right away just approached the car. But they gave me my leave to go. I did everything that a lawyer will tell you not to do. I gave a statement to 5 different law enforcement agencies down there at the crash scene. And they always tell you, shut up and lawyer up. And I should have, but they kept promising me, and they will do this. They said, if you just give us a statement, we'll let you go home. And finally, at the end, they told me when the Texas Rangers get here, they'll take over the scene and you give them a statement and then you can go home. And that ended to be the case, as I gave the Texas Rangers statement and he said, you can go home. And as I was walking, they had set up a roadblock about 200 yards up the road. And I could see my wife's car there. And as I started walking that 200 yards back to the car, a very pleasant looking lady about my age came up behind me and said, Mr. Willeford, I need to speak with you. I turned around and looked at her and she was crying. And she said, I had friends in that church. And I said, how bad was it? She said, it is really bad. And then she pulled out a card. She said, but if I can do anything to help you, here's my card. I'm the DA of Wilson County. So the DA had come out and offered me her card. And that was literally my get out of jail free card.
What a different situation than what would have happened here in New York or in California. Unbelievable.
25 to life.
Yeah. Oh, God.
If we ever did that here, we'd be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Not even a chance, right?
Not even.
I mean, they wouldn't even.
Lock you right up, right?
Yeah.
Not even a chance.
Yep, we wouldn't even see you.
And, we talked a lot about the situation, what happened there. And I mean, I'll bet you that town is still not the same after all the loss of life of those wonderful people.
Well, it is.
Go ahead.
It is a very resilient town, but it will never be the same. Understand, Sutherland Springs is under 600 total population.
Oh, wow.
And 26 people died.
Wow.
Under 600 total population. Think about that for a moment. And 26 people died.
Yeah.
And 20 more were shot and injured. That's a considerable percentage of the total population. And again, I'm 4th generation on the same property. My great-grandfather bought the property in 1927. I knew my great-grandparents until I was in my mid-20s before they died. So I had connection to the little town and always will. I'll live here until I die. And, it's Mayberry, USA.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody cares for everybody.
Well, sometimes I wish I could live in a town like that. It just sounds like just such a great place to be, because with all the bigger the population gets, the bigger the cities get, the bigger the suburbs get, the more laws and rules and government that comes in. When you have those small towns like that, it just seems like just the best place on earth. Stephen, you really are a hero, and I'm sure everybody's told you that. And I just wanted to say it once again, because you deserve to be told that because of what you did. You had a bravery. You said it was God helping you through it or making you act or whatever. But I mean, still, you're the man who did it, and I think we all appreciate that very much. So thank you for what you did. I did want to talk a little bit about some of the other things you wanted to mention here, and one of the things is Gun Owners of America and the event that's coming up. Did you want to give us a little bit of info on that?
So we're having our first annual convention. It's called Goals, GOA Goals. It's going to be taking place in Knoxville, Tennessee. Knoxville, Tennessee is a beautiful place to be. Not as good as Texas, but great place to be. In our goals, we're going to have manufacturers booths, and we're going to have anything gun related that you can think of. We're going to have great speakers there. I'm going to be speaking at Goals, right along with just a whole bunch of other people. And it's just going to be a great time. It's going to be a 2-day event. All the GOA members get in free. Please go to gunowners.org, sign up as a member, and come to Knoxville and see us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. It's the first GOA event like this, isn't it? I mean, we know other gun rights groups have their events. This is the first one for GOA, if I'm not mistaken.
It's the first one for Gun Owners of America. It's the first time we're having a national convention.
Now, you also recently got back to another, because I know when we talked about you coming on the show, you said you were at another event when we were talking, called The Gathering. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So The Gathering takes place in Clinton, South Carolina. It's put on by Palmetto State Armory, and they have a lot of the manufacturers and the stuff that are at this event, and you can shoot their stuff from Smith & Wesson and Springfield Armory, and you just get to walk around and shoot their stuff. They have 17 bays for shooting.
Wow.
And someone told me we do about 15,000 people a year show up for this, and 17 bays. They said they average 10,000 rounds per bay per day.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
So there's a lot of lead sent down range.
That's awesome.
The liberals say that we're all crazy. All these gun owners are far right extremists, crazy and dangerous. With that much lead flying around, if we were crazy and dangerous, then somebody would get injured, but nobody ever gets injured.
Gun owners are some of the most responsible and respectful people that I've ever met in my life. Stephen, and you're one of them. Where can people find you, or what's your call to action that you'd like people to know?
Well, I have a book out. It's called A Town Called Sutherland Springs. Please, you can go to Amazon and pick it up. You can also go to gunowners.org and purchase my book at gunowners.org. You can find my page. I am very sorry. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. No, wait, I didn't even hear it. Go ahead. So we can find you where?
You can find my page at thebarefootdefender.com.
Awesome. Hey, Stephen, thanks so much. Really appreciate you being on the show, and I'll see you in Tennessee. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for watching The Loaded Mic on Rumble and YouTube. You can also find us on OpsLens, the Right America Media, Simul TV, and the Key Radio Network. You can find the podcast on any podcast platform out there. We're on all of them. Just remember, the Second Amendment is not a privilege. It's your right.